Welcome to Santa Fe.
Feels great this time of year. Tonight we are celebrating a tradition that's nearly 100 years old.
In 1 hour, the 98th burning of Zozobra will begin.
He's this giant puppet stuffed with gloom, and when he goes up in flames, so goes the things that are weighing you down.
Tonight we explore the history of this fantastic town, the clashes, the cultures, and customs that led to this annual spectacle.
There has been a lot of time for tradition to form in Santa Fe.
That's right, 412 years to be exact, and even before it was explored by the Spanish, Native Americans have lived in this area for thousands of years. Spaniards first got here in 1607, and within 4 years, quite a few were living here.
Their first encounters with Pueblo people was just like, okay, we're here now, and this is all ours now, but you can stay here, but you're ours now.
Tension built, and by the late 1600s, the two groups clashed in the Pueblo Revolt.
The Spanish were expelled from New Mexico, which is often pointed out to be the only successful decolonization effort in North America.
12 years later, the Spanish returned, taking over Santa Fe.
Buildings from that time period still stand in the capital city. The Palace of the Governors is the oldest continuously used public building in the nation. It was first built in 1610 as the Spanish colonial capital. Native Americans moved in after driving them out. Later, it was controlled by the Mexican government. Then it became the U.S. territorial capital, falling briefly under Confederate control during the Civil War. Today, it's New Mexico's State History Museum.
The land that is now New Mexico was the wild frontier, largely unexplored by Americans who settled on the East Coast. But the 1800s changed that.
William Becknell pioneered the Santa Fe Trail and opened up a connection between Missouri and New Mexico. And so now, rather than flowing to the south, most of the trade out of New Mexico flowed eastward to the United States.
Establishing Santa Fe as a center for trade in the Southwest and bringing more people to the area.
In 1846, the U.S. Army marched into Santa Fe.
And there was very little resistance. There was very little in the way of military control or power here from the Mexicans, and they mostly fled.
The takeover was later recognized by the signing of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, and by 1850, New Mexico became a U.S. territory.
By the late 1800s, railroad tracks were inching closer. The Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railroad was the first line to come into New Mexico.
And there were various reasons why it didn't go into Santa Fe. The main reason is that it would have had to have cut through the plaza, and the residents didn't want it.
Instead, the train stopped about 18 miles south of the capital in Lamy. Advertising campaigns promoted the area, encouraging people to come and visit.
Americans started to have a little bit more discretionary income that they could pay on tours. Tourists from back east wanted to get the real West experience.
Some of the marketing was for some of the earliest forms of medical tourism.
Thousands came here for tuberculosis treatment.
By 1912, the contagious lung disease was a leading cause of death.
As specialized hospitals, they're called sanatoriums, opened statewide, bringing a steady stream of patients, some of who would recover and become New Mexico legends. Inside and out, time hasn't changed this facility much. Built in 1906, it was one of the state's first sanatoriums.
This is Sunmount. Beautiful, beautiful place.
In the foothills of Santa Fe, Sunmount was one of 55 tuberculosis or TB treatment centers in the state.
In the late 19th century, the belief was that TB could be cured with a treatment of fresh air, thin air, and that certainly was true of New Mexico.
Historian Richard Melzer is an expert in the wave of out-of-towners coming for relief from a lung disease.
The doctors liked them to come in early stages of TB. And when they did that, there was a much better chance of them surviving. If they came out and there were advanced cases, there's very little they could do.
Rest was required. Pictures from the era show patients in bed or outside, soaking up sun and fresh air.
I arrived March 3rd, 1920.
One of those patients was a young artist from Philadelphia.
His story was that he came to Sunmount and he really didn't think he had a future.
William Howard Schuster was his name, a painter, just back from World War I and suffering from the effects of mustard gas.
After having all sorts of tests made, I realized that the situation wasn't good. And he finally told me that I had TB. I said, well, what do we do?
In this 1964 interview, Schuster explains his doctor told him to get to a high and dry place.
I've been gassed and TB developed. I came out here to die. I'm still trying to die.
It took quite a long time, didn't it?
His prescription.
I want you to stay in bed 12 hours a day.
But instead of resting, he hiked these foothills.
Kill himself hiking. Instead, it made him stronger, and he recovered.
He made lifelong friends with other artists at this sanatorium. Friendships built fireside in this community room. His doctor predicted this climate could be a cure-all.
He said, you'll probably die of old age, snake bite, or drinking too damn much bad whiskey.
Will Schuster survived and thrived, making it to his 75th birthday, one of his friends memorializing his service on canvas. Now Schuster and his art are legendary. His prize piece on stage every year in a fiery display that reminds us all that anguish is temporary if you find the right release. People who healed from these treatments felt like they would get sick again if they left Santa Fe, so they stayed.
Yeah, many of them were artists focusing their work on the people and culture at the turn of the 19th century. Edgar Lee Hewitt created the New Mexico Museum of Art as a place where they could not only display their work, but have space to make it.
Yeah, prior to his arrival in 1920, Schuster did not have much experience as an artist, but quickly developed a curiosity for all things Santa Fe.
He was interested in trying his hand at whatever he could get a chance to practice. So painting, printmaking, eventually creating the monster that we know as a Zobra, all came from him trying to make the most of the short time that he thought he had left.
He became drawn to like-minded artists.
They believed deeply that art should speak to, in their own words, you know, the peasant worker in the same way that it spoke to any connoisseur or curator or museum director.
They developed Santa Fe's first art collective, Los Cinco Pintores.
And part of this was simply that they were 5 painters. And the other part was that they wanted to honor the Hispanic identity that was already here in New Mexico and show that they appreciated what their adopted culture had to bring to them.
Schuster, along with Fremont Ellis, Walter Mruck, Joseph Bacos, and Willard Nash, all had different inspirations for their work, but they shared the same goal: bring art out of museums to the people.
They brought the bohemian art scene here to Santa Fe. They really broke the mold of academically trained artists to make Santa Fe a place where any creative person could come and be the person they want to be.
And that idea helped inspire a new tradition. Brianna Albizu shares the birth of Zozobra.
A lover of life with a wicked sense of imagination. That's how Kate often describes her great-grandfather, Will Schuster.
This was part of my great-grandfather's artistic vision.
His idea of a 50-foot marionette may seem elaborate, but in 1923, it was anything but. According to Schuster's diaries, he and several members of the Los Cinco Pintores gathered at La Fonda on Christmas Eve. Many of them were feeling gloomy about the lack of money they were getting from their paintings. That's when Schuster decided to lighten the mood.
He said he just stood up and he put his hands on the table and he said, "You guys are going to be happy." He got a sketch pad that he had and he gave it to them and he demanded that they write down what was bothering them.
Schuster put them in the middle of the table and lit them on fire with a candle, declaring their gloom's gone.
Bartender comes back and just looks at this and he sees the table on fire and he tells them they all need to get out.
A few months later, Schuster took a trip to Mexico, where he attended a Good Friday celebration hosted by Yaqui Indians.
They would create a 5-foot effigy of Judas, right, the apostle that betrayed Jesus, and they would parade it through the town. They would throw shoes at it, they would spit at it, and at the end, in the plaza, they would actually burn it.
Schuster returned to Santa Fe and combined the ideas of writing down those glooms with the burning in a public spectacle. Working with his friend, marionette maker Gustav Baumann, they designed a puppet, burning him to a crisp. And well, the rest is history.
He lives out in the mountains and he wears a dress and he embodies the gloom of the people, and we're gonna get the mayor to invite him here, and we're gonna have a party and he'll come and we're gonna set him on fire. I love it.
Aside from his creativity, Kate says she admires her great-grandfather's passion the most.
The point of the Zobra is that the world is changing and a lot of the time it sucks. And we're here to burn him no matter what.
In hopes of keeping the world happy and positive. Brianna Albizu, KOAT, Action 7 News.
Kate honors her family's legacy by often attending the burning.
Yeah, like many of us, she says that she has a lot of glooms to burn.
Zozobra has been around a long time, but there's a tradition that started long before.
The earliest document we have that mentions the Santa Fe Fiestas is from 1712.
How the two events came together to create an even bigger celebration.
I think I was like 7 months old or something like that.
He's been at almost every burn since he was a baby. Why this tradition means so much to this longtime fan.
Welcome back to Zozobra, celebrating the legacy.
As we count down to the 2022 burning of Zozobra, we are celebrating a legacy.
This is a tradition tied to a much older celebration happening at the same time in the capital city, Fiestas de Santa Fe.
As New Mexico state historian tells us, the festivities have certainly changed since the idea was first documented back in 1712. Fiestas de Santa Fe, a celebration. With colorful dresses, music, food, and pageantry. But Fiestas hasn't always looked like this.
The earliest document we have that mentions the Santa Fe Fiestas is from 1712.
State historian Rob Martinez says this 310-year-old document is a mandate to commemorate the 1692 reconquest of New Mexico.
We say fiesta to party, to have a festival. Well, back then it was a much more solemn event.
The document explains how Spanish leaders of the 1700s should honor history.
It was very Catholic and very religious.
An evening mass with a sermon at a church somewhere near the current cathedral, followed by a procession through the center of Santa Fe.
And even though in the document it says that this will happen every year, we're not sure it even happened every year, or if it did for a few years and then stopped happening. We're just not sure.
Combing through state archives,
there's no mention of the fiestas in any documents by priests or governors in the 1700s or 1800s.
But in 1904, there's a fiesta revival.
But it really gets kicked into high gear in the teens or the 1920s when you start seeing fiestas, people dressing up like Franciscan priests.
Martinez says there's a focus on celebrating New Mexico's cultures and pioneers. A new pageant called La Entrada showed a Spanish conquistador and his soldiers reclaiming Santa Fe from Pueblo people, portrayed as a bloodless conquest.
And there's some truth to that. In 1692, he had a peaceful encounter with the Pueblos, but by 1693, there's friction, and it becomes a bloody reconquest in 1693.
Many New Mexicans protested, saying it wasn't historically accurate, and dismissed the brutality suffered by so many Native Americans. It was dropped from fiestas in 2018. Our state historian says moving forward with celebrating New Mexico's history happens by coming together and by studying a shared heritage.
It's okay to change. Our culture is evolving and changing all the time. It's a living culture.
Fiestas typically starts the first weekend in September, starting with the burning of Zozobra.
Yeah, but the two events haven't always been so closely connected.
The first time Old Man Gloom burned was at a backyard barbecue in August of 1924. Artists and writers watched as the puppet burned to ashes.
Will Schuster wanted to share Zozobra with everyone and asked that it become a part of Fiestas. But the people in charge did not like adding such a pagan-looking beast to the religious festival.
Not happy with the answer, Will Schuster and his friend Gustav Baumann organized a counter fiesta called El Pasatiempo. They wanted to break away from the religious themes of fiestas.
So on September 3rd, 1926, they held the first event that started with the public burning of Zozobra behind what was City Hall at the time. The following day, they held a hysterical pageant, which was a parody of the pageant of Fiestas. Then they dressed their pets in costumes, just paraded them around the plaza. So it was popular. The next year, the Santa Fe Fiesta Council invited them to kick off the celebration.
As the 20s roared on, people across the nation were taking notice of the talent here in Santa Fe. But when the stock market crashed in 1929, the artistic boom did too. Will Schuster wrote to a friend in New York State during the Great Depression about how tough times were in Santa Fe. He couldn't pay his bills, saying, quote, "Yesterday I had to tell the light company to turn the electricity off and that I would use kerosene lamps. All Americans were feeling the pinch."
President Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal idea helped many of America's 15 million unemployed and struggling. Different public works projects put artists to work, painting murals and building structures that can still be seen today.
The 1930s.
Nobody had any money. Nobody could feed their families. Nobody had any jobs. It was a terrible time. It was the Great Depression that this country went through.
To help keep the nation employed, the government created new work programs.
The Civilian Conservation Corps, and that was to put men, and young men particularly, to work saving our land and planting millions of trees all over this country.
And building roads at places like Bandelier National Monument, Carlsbad Caverns, and White Sands. While this program put money into people's pockets, many were still struggling. In 1933, Schuster wrote his friend John Sloan about his trouble. But by the end of the year, his luck changed.
They had a federal art project, putting artists to work, doing paintings, murals, whatever, in all of the public buildings all over this nation, and a ton of them in New Mexico.
Schuster told his friend that this program was, quote, the most important thing which has happened to the Schuster family. He was paid $42.50 a week, or about $1,000 a week today, quickly getting to work on several projects.
Mural or series of murals of the Carlsbad Cavern interior.
And at the New Mexico Museum of Art, he produced 4 frescoes depicting Native American traditions. Schuster believed the work produced by all New Deal artists made an impact, building the public's interest in art. Stephanie Muñiz, KOAT Action 7 News.
Fort Marcy Park was built as one of those New Deal projects.
And in 1933, Zozobra moved to the park.
At first, he burned on the field before being moved up to the terrace.
And that's where he's burned every year since.
So it's changed over the years. People used to drive there and sit in their cars to watch the show.
Now families wait in security lines and thousands pack the fields.
But one thing has not changed.
Yeah, if you grow up in Santa Fe, it's something you look forward to every year.
There's a lot of a lot of stuff that goes into making him work.
Imagine growing up alongside Old Man Gloom.
I guess I've built too many.
No, literally. Growing up with Zozobra.
My first one was 61. That's when I was born.
That's Kenneth Garley. He's got a near perfect record at Fort Marcy.
And I've been to all of them with the exception of 84.
That was when Garley was in college and accidentally agreed to work a shift.
Little did I know I screwed up. I could have kept a perfect record.
But hey, Garley's honest. He could have called off. Loyal too. Coming back to Santa Fe even when he lived out of state for more than a decade.
I took all my vacations and I came back for every single Zozobra.
And that loyalty started at a young age, from throwing a tantrum when a family trip almost replaced his favorite weekend.
So yeah, my mom turned around and came back and made it to Zozobra just in time.
To celebrating Zozobra year-round.
I guess I was the neighborhood pyrotechnician, so I would round up all the neighborhood kids and we would build a Zozobra and we would burn it.
And you guessed it, Garley's love for Old Man Gloom continued into adulthood.
I was on the build team for a long time.
He was even Zozobra himself for a while.
I used to be the voice way back.
So with Garley attending essentially since birth, how many burnings is that?
61 Zozobras.
Now that's dedication. Darlene Melendez, KOAT Action 7 News.
Despite not having perfect attendance at the event, Ken believes he has been to more burnings than anyone else.
He's a beast feeding on our gloom all year. Find out what happens when he is tricked into coming to a party in Santa Fe. We explain the mythology of Zozobra next.
You're watching Zozobra, celebrating the legacy.
Welcome back as we continue to celebrate the legacy of Zozobra.
This enormous puppet has taken on many forms over the decades, becoming the monster we need him to be at the time.
Early versions, you can see he is shirtless. Suits come along in the 30s with buttons and cummerbunds.
His design is often a sign of the times, taking on a mix of Hitler and Hirohito during World War II. His iconic bow tie appeared in the 80s, and his hairstyle is always somewhat of a surprise, changing almost every year.
He's also gotten taller, starting at just 6 feet in 1924, earning a world record at 50 feet 6 inches in 2007, and now nearly 60 feet tall.
And when we got to 2014 and we were looking ahead to the 2024 100th anniversary, we decided it was time to mix it up a little bit. And we've moved through every successive decade, marking not only Zozobra's story, but the history of Santa Fe and what was happening in the world during those eras.
You can see him here representing the 40s, wearing a fedora for the first and only time, and saluting the 70s with some Saturday Night Fever.
Well, 2020 was a year that impacted all of us. The club put the Decades Project on hold for the COVID-19 pandemic. His hair representing the look of the virus, murder hornet cufflinks, and 2020 stamped on his buttons.
Yeah, last year, the Decades Project, it did return, celebrating the 80s with, who else? Michael Jackson Thriller look. Changed his skin color for the first time ever, by the way, to that ghoulish green.
And this year, they are taking it back to the 90s, boy bands, Pokemon, plaid shirts, and grunge.
We're always looking to the future. We are visionaries and we want to make it bigger and better. We don't want Zozobra ever to be a one and done. We want people to come back every year excited to see what he's going to look like.
Did you know this massive puppet hasn't always had the name Zozobra?
Yeah, so he was first called Old Man Groucher. Will Schuster was friends with the editor of the Santa Fe New Mexican. They both thought Old Man Groucher just wasn't quite right.
So they looked in a Spanish dictionary and picked the word Zozobra, meaning anguish and gloom, and they felt like that was perfect.
Yeah, the editor of the paper also helped create the story of this beast. So he wrote articles about sightings of Zozobra and his capture in a cave along the Pecos River before being brought to Santa Fe to burn.
Today, Meow Wolf shares the legend.
Zozobra is a monster. Make no mistake about that. This specter stays in hiding all year long, feeding on and gaining power from our failings and misdeeds. But once a year, we get a chance to cast out the darkness. We lure Zozobra into a trap. We invite him to the Fiesta de Santa Fe. The monster dresses to impress. But he comes to the party with his own wicked agenda, to rob the city different of its hope and spirit. As the party begins, Zozobra seizes the chance to enact his evil plan. He casts a spell on the children, turning them into an army of gloomies. But the torch-bearing townspeople fight back, recapturing the hearts and minds of the children. Zozobra rages. The people flee. Hope is scarce. Burn him. Burn him. Burn him. This summons the fire spirit, mortal enemy to Zozobra. And the dance begins. Burn him. Burn him. Burn him. She holds a torch to Zozobra, setting him ablaze. Victory belongs to the fire spirit, who restores Santa Fe's hope and goodwill. But Zozobra will rise again next year, as our human faults and failings return, inevitably, like weeds to a garden.
Sewing, shredding, and stuffing.
He's going to weigh anywhere between 2,000 to 3,000 pounds.
Putting this gigantic puppet together takes a lot of work.
Got a paper cut and it's the best one ever.
How the community comes together to get this job done.
This year we're just making it bigger and better.
Dancers, torchbearers, a fire spirit, and a new voice. We show you how they create this spectacle.
I'll let everybody in on a big secret.
And we reveal some mystery behind the tradition never made public until now.
But first, we head out to Fort Marcy Park, where we are live as we get ready for the 98th burning of Zozobra.
Welcome back to Zozobra, celebrating the legacy.
Welcome back to Zozobra, celebrating the legacy.
And what a legacy it is. You see, Will Schuester created this monster, but wanted to make sure it lived on past his lifetime.
So in 1964, he passed along the rights to the Kiwanis Club of Santa Fe. Today, they own the copyrights and trademarks and work to keep the tradition alive by building him every year.
As Sasha Lenninger shows us, it takes a village to get Old Man Gloom ready for his big day.
With 90s jams in the background.
I just like feeling Zozobra because it's a fun thing to do. Yeah, I'm just really excited for to see him burn.
Kids and adults join Zozobra staff to build the enormous puppet. And according to the construction foreman and designer, it's not easy.
He's built on frames numbered from A through I, and we post those all together based on those sizes. Once we get that wooden armature, we put chicken wire over it that gives him his structure.
The body taking on the same form year after year. And once assembled, he's more than 50 feet tall.
Originally, he stood 38. So we've had to increase him by a factor of 10%. So in doing so, we've had to take the measurements that Schuester gave us, which were in inches, right? And then increase it by 10%.
Once the frame is built, the community comes into play. Stuffing Marionette with 1,500 to 2,500 pounds of paper, and kids love to help.
Because it's the best time of my life. I always wanted to stuff the Zozobra, and I never got to this day.
Stuffing is composed of all the paper shredding that we get. We bundle it up, turn it into a little comet essentially, and we put it inside a 2-inch poultry net, and we lock it in there to make sure it doesn't unravel.
More than 70 yards of fabric cover his head, body, arms, ears, jaw, and nose. Then he's dressed in his best 90s fashion.
He's going to weigh anywhere between 2,000 to 3,000 pounds based on how well he gets stuffed.
Construction takes 4 weeks and a lot of work from these volunteers.
I used to like burning him because you could get rid of bad stuff. It's kind of like hard work. I got a paper cut and it's the best one ever.
I don't doubt that one bit. Sasha Lenninger, KOAT, Action 7 News.
This was the first year since the pandemic that the community could help, and a good thing too. We're told the hardest part of building Zozobra is stuffing the gloom inside.
So what exactly is a gloom? Well, it's really anything that's bothering you. Most of the glooms are written on paper, but there have been other items people wanted to get rid of as well. Sometimes people put in death certificates, divorce papers, wedding dresses, or medical records. It's even rumored that Marilyn Monroe's dresses were thrown in there one year. And of course, in 2020, the club collected calendars from anyone willing to part with theirs to make that horrible year go up in smoke.
On the morning of the burning, this puppet is moved to Fort Marcy Park. It's quite the challenge to get him there, too.
2, 3.
This is video of the move last year. His limbs are carefully loaded up, along with his torso and head, and he's trucked across town.
When he gets to Fort Marcy Park, another challenge. Zozobra has to be assembled and attached to a giant pole. Check out this time lapse from last year. It takes hours to get it just right. It also takes special equipment. Linemen from P&M, New Mexico's power company, use their equipment to get him standing. They've been helping for years. Just look at these pictures the company shared with us. This one is from 1940, before big bucket trucks. Look up top. You'll see a P&M worker who actually climbed the pole to lift Zozobra up. In the 70s, you can see them using bucket trucks.
Destroying this beast has been a spectacle since the first public burning. That was in 1926. A procession made their way behind City Hall, where they saw the creature illuminated by green flames. The city attorney read his death sentence, and the fires turned red, setting off fireworks. A column of many colored flames engulfed the marionette. Onlookers threw off their robes, revealing their costumes, and they began to celebrate.
That pageantry has grown, and today you'll see gloomies, torchbearers, and the fire dancer kick off the festivities. I had a chance to talk to the people who make this performance happen. It's a typical morning inside the New Mexico Ballet Company. Dancers warm up and rehearse. 1, 2, 3. This is just one of many things Ella, in the purple shirt there, is doing to get ready for a New Mexico performance like no other.
So every year it'll be different sort of theatrics, different styles, different costumes, and kind of making it on a grander scale. every year as we do it.
Kira Peterson is in charge of Zozobra choreography for the Gloomies. She too will be dancing with them. They're excited about the theme.
This year it's going to be very 90s. You'll recognize it right away. From the Gloomies to the Torchbearers, they're going to be in very different costumes, but pretty recognizable for the genre that we're doing of the music.
According to Zozobra lore, Gloomies are children who turn to the dark side, but are cured once Zozobra is burned. This is the second year the New Mexico Ballet Company has done the show, and it's a lot of work.
It's been every weekend now we're going up there and rehearsing in the space, and then the dancers here with New Mexico Ballet, we're meeting twice a week to rehearse in the studio before we go up to the park.
The townspeople rise up and summon the help of a fire dancer who gets rid of Zozobra and his sour attitude by burning all of those sorrows away.
And then just start, lifting weights for those torches. They're pretty heavy.
Helene Luna is the fire spirit. She's been doing this for 15 years now. She runs, lifts weights, and dances in the summer to get in shape for the performance in the fall.
But I do not put on that costume till the night. There's something about that tradition of just, okay, now I'm becoming it. The moment is here. So for that pageantry, for me, is just fine-tuning that last week, and then when I do put on that unitard, just okay, I'm ready. Let's do this. Let's do this.
The fire dancer is Zozobra's arch enemy, dressed in a flowy red costume and a headdress, and armed with a pair of those heavy blazing torches that seal Zozobra's fate. Luna is only the fourth fire dancer in the history of Zozobra. Here's a picture of the first. Jacques Cartier, the ballet dancer from New York, came to Santa Fe for 37 straight years to be the fire dancer. He was succeeded in 1970 by his student Chip. There's Chip in 1987. And now Luna has the role. It takes months of prep for one big fiery night.
When you get in front of a crowd that's over 30,000 people, it's just different. And that's adrenaline. And that, for me, is when you just focus on your character and try to bring in the most fierce character and energy that you can bring so that you can really create this magical moment.
All of the performers are volunteers.
Zozobra is a giant puppet, and moving him, it's hard work, especially with all those glooms stuffed inside.
A lot of muscle. Yeah, the guys on the arms, they're on there for a good hour and a half, lifting those arms.
5 people work together on each arm, pulling ropes to move them. Ron Martinez leads the team. He says the arms are very heavy. Other members pull cables to move the head and mouth. The eyes move by remote control. In all, it takes about 14 people to bring Zozobra to life.
Of course, Zozobra steals the show, and he's not quiet. He moans and groans, expressing emotion through his growl throughout the show. And there's a new voice behind the microphone this year. Bill Parnell was one of 60 who tried out for the job, but he was the one with just the right amount of gloom and anguish in his pipes. He grew up going to the annual burning, even playing in a band at the foot of the puppet.
Live musicians play while Gloomies, Torchbearers, and the Fire Dancer perform. The music is all coordinated with the show, getting super suspenseful right before he goes up in flames.
When you go to see a movie, there'll be sad music in a sad section. There'll be tense music in a chase scene or a suspense scene. Music just heightens the experience.
When he's reduced to ashes, they play the traditional fiesta song, celebrating that our glooms have burned away. The sky is filled with fireworks, giving everyone a fresh start. You know, many Santa Fe natives refer to this as their new year.
Secrets are a part of any tradition, and Zozobra is no exception.
John Cardinelli spoke with Zozobra's event chairman to unravel some of the mystery behind Old Man Gloom.
Any good tradition has its own little secrets. Right?
Ray Sandoval first experienced Zozobra at just 4 years old and hasn't missed a burning since 1978. Now,
so I am the 6th Zozobra chairman in Zozobra's 98th year history.
As such, secrets of this legacy have been passed on to him.
There's 5 people that really know the secrets, and part of that is because if anything ever happened to 2 of us or something, we feel comfortable that we would have folks know and be able to hand those on down.
Now he's letting us in on a couple. The first, the Beast himself.
What you see in the front, you would figure is a full figure. And in the back, it's not so much that way. We never post that on social media. We want to make sure that people really think that this is a full specter that they're seeing in front of them.
Another secret deals with the creator, Will Schuster's fascination with the number 3.
There's all these weird threes that show up, not only in just the construction and the measurements of Zozobra, but also on the timeline. Like, for instance, if we have a wind delay and we're supposed to go at 9:13, we have to wait till we get to another 3 before we can turn off the lights.
Even on the morning of the burning.
Myself, the construction chairman, and the deputy chairman, the 3 of us walk in that morning to wake Zozobra up. And, you know, we have a little private moment with the Beast.
A tradition dating back to the first puppet in 1924. Sandoval says there are many other secrets he can't share, and no one has ever let those out.
Because I think that the punishment would probably be excommunication from the event, and I don't think anybody wants to do that. This is really a New Mexico tradition, and those secrets on how to put Zozobra together and make sure all how it works, really protect it to keep it that New Mexico tradition.
I'm John Cardinelli reporting, KOAT Action 7 News.
Sandoval says it takes 5 to 6 years of someone showing dedication to Zozobra before they would be considered to hold the secret.
The giant puppet only comes to town once a year, but you can see his image all across Santa Fe.
So it's got the flames on one side, and then it's got the Zozobra on the other.
The art and wearable reminders that keep his meaning alive all year.
And now he has worldwide reach.
Putting it into the fire symbolizes freedom, releasing fears, releasing the past.
Why more and more people are finding healing through Zozobra.
But first, let's go back to that 90s dance party at Fort Marcy Park where people are waiting to watch him burn.
You're watching Zozobra, celebrating the legacy.
We're now minutes away from watching the 98th burning of Zozobra.
From an idea among friends to burn away negativity to the giant spectacle of today, his legend has now spread worldwide, mostly because of the pandemic.
Organizers didn't want the tradition to be put on hold because mass gatherings were not allowed.
Yeah, so in 2020, for the first time, they partnered with us to share the burning on television and online.
People across the nation, even around the world, watched.
The pandemic gloom affected everyone, and we all needed a little Zozobra therapy.
This is Zozo last year. And that's his Michael Jackson jacket.
Jules Taylor fell in love with Old Man Gloom in 1985.
I went to the College of Santa Fe, which no longer exists.
Almost 40 years later, her home is hundreds of miles away from Santa Fe.
I live in Fayetteville, Arkansas.
But she still keeps in touch with friends from college.
Houston, Denver, New York, LA.
And during the pandemic,
one of the things that did positive happen is so many people reconnected. And my college group reconnected over Zoom.
They talked about college and how Zozobra made them feel.
It's kind of like when you're in church and you're experiencing something on a spiritual level with a community, but this is like, times 500.
So when they learned they could stream the 2020 event, they did it together virtually.
And it was just a beautiful bonding experience, not just because we had shared that for all those years, but also where we were in the world together.
They all wrote down their glooms.
I have a candle of Zozobra that I bought in 1985.
And for the first time since she bought it, she lit the wick. And her friends in their respective squares on the screens in their homes did the same.
As we were watching together, each of us burned our own notes of gloom together on the Zoom, together, and shared all of that and felt that power, of having that support. And it was powerful.
Everyone needed that extra support at the time. Then, a few months later, they needed it even more.
One of our friends of our group died of COVID. And so it made it that much more poignant and important for us to get together.
And they did, in person this time at the 2021 burning of Zozobra.
Part of going to Zozobra was celebrating Tim's life for us and remembering all the times that we went to Zozobra with Tim.
She says this is the picture that explains her emotion, the release of hurt, the anger COVID brought to her and her friends, and the joy of being able to once again gather with friends to start a new year by watching their anguish go up in smoke. Angel Salcido, KOAT, Action 7 News.
And now people from all over the world want to join in on this tradition as well. Look at the map of ticket sales. You can see all the countries where people have bought tickets this year. They're in Santa Fe, now waiting to watch him burn.
And when these people come to the city different, they will experience how much the community embraces this monster.
It's just an iconic figure for this town.
Murals on the wall, small figurines, and paintings depicting Old Man Gloom.
I think a lot of artists have taken it on in a really spirited way, and I always love seeing what people do and their different renditions and what they see.
And take a look at this. Robert Pineda shows his love for the beast by displaying it in Legos. He's taken on this challenge several times now, showcasing the event in 20,000 plus piece designs that have so much detail. You can see here the fire dancer holding her torches.
Zozobra has even made his way onto the big screen. You can see a small piñata version of him parading around in what looks like the Santa Fe Plaza in this 1947 film, Ride the Pink Horse. The actual 1976 Zozobra appeared in the film Southern Double Cross. And in 1988, Dennis Hopper paid the club $7,000 to create a full-sized puppet for the film Backtrack.
And just last year, a smaller version was built for ABC's The Bachelorette when they shot here in New Mexico.
So my purpose of working with a couple was to get them to get in touch with their fears and their doubts that came from the past, so they wouldn't bring that into their new formed relationship.
Felicia Evans is a local healer. Much like Zozobra, her job is to help people let go.
Burning all the fears.
It's so important to heal so you can be comfortable and confident in this world and not feel like something is wrong with you, right? Healing is a process. So healing each layer, getting through each layer, each negative belief, so you can feel comfortable and confident with who you are.
She says the first step of healing is bringing awareness, the same as writing down glooms. We spoke to people about what they are hoping to release from their past this year as they work to heal.
Car issues.
The COVID, some postpartum anger.
Negativity and laziness.
All of my work stress. I had a lot of loss this year with my family, so I'm looking to a fresh start, celebrating them and moving forward with a new beginning.
It's the cleansing, the realization that there is negativity in the world, but we can kind of wash it away and start fresh.
The need to kind of create this figure that helps release our anger and anxiety through burning it is something that people can't seem to help.
Once you burn Old Man Gloom, it's all the hardship and all, the bad things that happen throughout the year, you start fresh again.
And what Zozobra does as a piece of art is it makes you feel something.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight to celebrate the legacy of Zozobra.
His rich history has not only shaped the culture in Santa Fe, but serves as an outlet for anxiety, grief, pain, and sadness.
And now, it is time for reflection and relief.
The 98th burning of Zozobra starts right now, live in just minutes.
you.